Cuban goes at it with a former Mavericks employee on social media. And this story comes out from Front Office Sports, and they have a screenshot. We're gonna post it up here. You can see it. That of a former employee calling out Mark Cuban and saying he should be run out of Dallas. There's a long thread here of a back and forth between former employee and Mark Cuban goes off on the employee, right? Employee puts Cuban should be run out of Dallas, and he's referring to the fact that the Luka Doncic trade, the Luka being heisted by the LA Lakers a few months ago, last month, I believe, or a few months ago, it could have been. I think it was last. Anyway, but so Mark Cuban responds. Now this appeared to be on, I guess, Facebook, some kind of Facebook group. But I don't know if it's a Facebook group or just a Facebook page. But Mark Cuban responds. Verified Mark Cuban account says, "How much of a bonus did you get when I sold?" He's talking about the bonus that all the employees got, the big checks after Mark Cuban sold the Dallas Mavericks to the new owners. And the employee responds, says, not enough to make up for the Luka trade. I'll give your dirty ass money back for Luka to be here. How about you? And then Cuban responds after that. He goes, "You didn't say a word when it showed up in your account," talking about the bonus. Then he goes, "Sure, it looked good when we made it to the finals, didn't it?" I think he's talking about also the NBA finals bonus, money that they get. Cuban goes on and says he did every damn thing he could for 23 years, kept prices lower than not only any NBA team, but lower than college teams as well. He had $2 tickets for multiple years. When he sold, there were always 4,000 tickets under $29. He made money only 2 out of the 23 years, which is breaking news to me because I assumed that all these owners were making money every year because of the money, just because of the TV deals, and every time you sell a team, owners are just, teams are worth billions of dollars now. I think almost every team in the league is worth at least over $1 billion, at least if not close to it. And I thought he was making money, but apparently he's breaking some news here saying that he only made money 2 out of the 23 years of owning the team. And he said, despite the fact that he was a majority owner, he lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And he says that you kept collecting your salary, saying that salary didn't change. You still got your money regardless of how much money the owners lose. Now, that this is a pretty interesting part of this. And I wonder if this is the case for many other owners across the league. I would like to see the metrics on that, because we hear about the money and the billionaire owners across the NBA, and they're also funding a WNBA league that loses 40 to 50 million every year. It's probably not. I think for us as the average viewer, we probably thinking that these guys are just like raking in the dough, and they're not really losing nothing, but they do put a lot of their own money into running the operation. It's not cheap to run a professional sports league. And many times the money may not come back as much as you spend. And we know Cuban did it. We know Cuban spent a lot of money. He did a lot of stuff that was like not normal, like what he did with the locker rooms, and he makes sure his players are all set. I mean, put in like video game system, all type of technology. So I kind of believe Mark Cuban here when he says that he lost hundreds of millions of dollars. I can very well see that being a legit possibility. I just wonder how many other teams around the league is also in the same boat, like as far as like how much money they made or lost. So then he also says, "Did my dirty dollars didn't get a peep out of you?" I guess he's talking about the guy didn't complain for 23 years, or when you got your check every 2 weeks, or when you got your bonus. So then Cuban says, "Go back to what I said when I sold the team. I didn't want my kids and my family to have to deal with people like you. I honestly got tired of the growing number of fans who became pricks on social media, people exactly like you. I pay your salary, I pay you a bonus. I didn't have to give you. The Nico and the new owners did something none of us liked, and you decided to fuck with me. Thank you for confirming I made the right decision. So clearly, and this is why we know that these players and these executives and the coaches and the ownership, they really do feel a certain kind of way when the fans go off on them. They know what the fans are saying. They may try to pretend they tune the fans out, but they obviously, because this is, I don't think Cuban would have went on this long rant over just this one guy saying Cuban should be run out of Dallas. It's really not, it's not like he said, oh, Cuban should be beat up or, you know, he really didn't say, like, according to this, now maybe there's a longer back and forth. Maybe there's some stuff that got back to Cuban, because Cuban he really was like, it seemed like he was really bothered. Like, this is more than just this one guy. That when Cuban went off, he's obviously talking about a lot of people that's blaming him for the Luka trade. And I want to be, you know, full disclosure here, you know, we kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of like not blame, but more like say, hey, you know, Mark Cuban said you'll never get rid of Luka, and we understand that Mark Cuban is still like 25% of the ownership, and it was listed that he was part of basketball operations. So I figured Mark Cuban was in on this, or at least knew about it. But it seems like Mark Cuban had no idea or was not part of the decision-making at all. At least that's how it's coming out now. And I kind of believe Mark Cuban if he's saying that. It kind of makes sense. And this is kind of messed up that, you know, the fans in Dallas, because they don't know. Now, I have an excuse. I'm not a Dallas Mavericks fan. I don't follow the Mavs. So I ignorantly probably thought, oh, since he's still part of basketball operations, he must have knew and must have been part of it. But if Cuban's saying he wasn't, and if it's true, you know, everything he's saying, then he doesn't really deserve to be, you know, attacked like this. And good for him for standing up for himself, I guess. But it is interesting, this whole back and forth here. And that trade happened, one of the craziest trades in NBA history, I guess, at least of the modern NBA. And fans are like, what the fuck? Especially Dallas Mavericks fans. And now you got a former employee who's completely pissed off and saying, hey, he would give all his money back for Luka Doncic. And, which I don't know why would you do that, but that it seems that the Luka trade has broken the Dallas Mavericks community, whether it be the fans and the former employees and even parts of ownership, right? Or former ownership in Mark Cuban, or he still owns a percentage of the team, but he doesn't make any basketball decisions. But Mark Cuban, he comes off as probably one of the best owners when it comes to doing for the fans and the players. This is why I kind of believe I would say I believe Mark Cuban on this, because he does take care of his fans, he took care of his players, just based off the reports of like what he did, the money he spent, the type of things he was doing for the locker room, and you know, so like I said, I'm not a Mavericks fan, and I'm not part of the Mavericks community, but I don't think people will report lies. I mean, these are things that were reported. It was documented. We've seen it, the videos of how he pretty much made Dallas a place where players wanted to play when they were there. He took care of them. So I have to think he took care of the employees too. And it's kind of messed up. I think this whole thing is wild. But I really, my take here on this, I really want to know how much other NBA owners are probably, if they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars, or what the case is with that. Because that probably tells another story. Like, think about it. Well, half of the owners in the league are also in the same boat. Hey, we've been losing money, hundreds of millions of personal money. Not like the business wise. I'm talking about personally, right? Because a lot of these guys, some of these guys' ownership is tied directly to their personal money. Some guys own it through like they have their own corporations, and some guys are self-made billionaires and their money directly come out of their pocket. Like Mark Cuban, for example, made his money through the ranks. Some other owners are connected and they have other venture capitalists and stuff like that, so they can afford to lose a couple $100 million as long as they have access. Because being an NBA owner, you're part of an elite club, right? So it's like, even if you're losing, if you're a billionaire and you lose hundreds of millions a year, it's like, okay, well, I'm part of the club, and I still have this valuable asset that at any time if I want to sell, I know I'm going to walk away with, at least if I'm the majority owner, I'm going to walk away with a couple of billion, right? So they don't care. As long as the NBA doesn't completely fold, right? Like you hold on to this this piece of great real estate that's under a brand name, the NBA. Because what is if the NBA is the valuable piece here, right? Not the team itself. Without the NBA's blessing and the NBA's, branding, the team itself is useless. It's not worth anything, right? Because not like the Dallas Mavericks can go. Like if the Dallas Mavericks tomorrow decided they're gonna go play and join a random league called, I don't know, American Basketball League, it would not be worth the same amount it is worth under the NBA. Under the NBA, that's my point. So it's like the NBA, as long as the NBA is still valuable, all the teams are gonna be valuable. But if the NBA crashes as a brand, then every NBA team crashes as well. So, so losing hundreds of millions of dollars, I think is a big deal to like a Mark Cuban, but probably not a big deal to many other owners. I mean, they throw away like I said, the NBA itself throws away probably hundreds of millions of dollars just to fund the WNBA. That's no problem. How much they probably lose, like $200 million. $300 million a year just off of that. And remember, they play like a couple months a year. This is pretty much the summer league, and they lose like a couple $100 million just by allowing that league to operate. So I don't think they're worried at this point. But Mark Cuban laying down Mark Cuban clapping back at his former employee. What a fucking day. What a day in Dallas.